Well, good afternoon. It is so good to be with you. And was mentioned, my oldest daughter is here with me. I get to take my kids on business trips and things like that. But this trip for her, she's here as an official college student on real business. There are hundreds of college students here learning about various aspects of family. And it's exciting to see this conference bring those young people in order to create family advocates for tomorrow and the coming years. And my sweet daughter Olivia was very fortunate to be among them. And so I'm glad for that. It's nice to have her here. My topic, interesting thing about speakers is they always think that their topic is the most important topic. And I'm fortunate for that to actually be true about me. The topic is the issue of gender, new findings on gender differences. And I think that this issue is important because the family and society and humanity, that's an undercurrent of what I'll be talking about this afternoon is what does it mean to be human? And one of the undercurrents of what it means to be human is this idea, this nature, this reality, this truth of what it means to be male and female. I remember a number of years ago, as was mentioned in the introduction, I get to go to college campuses, secular campuses all over the world, predominantly in the United States. And I remember being at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, speaking on the issue of gender. And this is an absolutely true story. I stood up and I said, I come here tonight with one basic premise, and all my comments will be based on this, that men and women are different, and that men and women need each other in those differences. What happened? I get applause here. That's not what happened there. Huge auditorium. Seriously, folks, boos and taunts and laughter that I would say something so silly, and I've never been hissed at before. I got hissed at, seriously, for saying men and women are different and need each other. So what I did was I stepped back from the podium as all this raucous booing was going on, and I said, okay, folks, let's just capture this moment. I just said men and women are different and they need each other in their differences, and you booed and hissed me. Later on, when they taped that and they put the tape out, I wanted to hear how that little section worked. They edited it out because they knew that they weren't acting like good adult people. You know, we've got to challenge this idea and speak it clearly. And we can speak it from the perspective of faith, but we can also speak it from the perspective of science as well. And we need to know, in the work that I do at Focus on the Family and have done for the last 20 plus years, is looking at the book of Scripture and the book of science, the book of nature, and seeing how these things connect. So, as a Christian, I'm working from a primary understanding that male and female come in only two packages, or that humanity comes in only two packages, male and female. And that, what does science have to say about that? That's what we're going to talk about. And this is a very important question. Now, I want to start with a cartoon from the New Yorker. I get the New Yorker, I read the New Yorker, and they have fascinating cartoons, okay? The New Yorker, it is not, this backwoods, pro-family publication. I love this ad. It's a businessman, or this cartoon. This businessman at his desk, he's talking to a colleague. He has 4 different frames on his desk, and he says, yes, we are very fortunate to be blessed with one of each. Okay? If you don't get that, ask your neighbor. Now, that is funny for a reason. Why? Because we know even the folks, the sophisticated people who live way up in New York City, they understand there are only two models of human beings, male and female, boys and girls, men and women. And so this is one of the biggest questions that we need to ask today. Is there a universal, humanly universal, male and female nature? Or is male and female, as we see it today, as we represent and see ourselves here today, is it merely a cultural construct? Are we simply male and female because the culture dictates and demands that we be this way? Gender theory says that's absolutely the case. But abundant research, you know what, before I go there, let's go to this next slide. Before we go on to the research, I want to lay out, as a Christian, why is it that this gender issue is so contentious? There's a theological reason for that, and it comes in creation. Jesus, or God, says in Genesis 1, let us, the Trinity, let us, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, let us make man in our image according to our likeness. In the image of God, he created them, finish it for me, male and female, he created them. So this female being and this male being, they uniquely, mysteriously image the nature of God in the world. Now this painting, I love art history, and we can learn so much from it. This is a painting that William Blake did for John Milton's Paradise Lost. And the title of this painting is Satan Gazing Upon the Caresses of Adam and Eve. Satan came to attack humanity, not just by approaching Eve or Adam, but what William Blake is telling us here is to attack a couple. He sees that man, he sees that woman, he sees them loving one another, and he says, I know who love one another, the Trinity, God, and I hate them, so I must break this up. The original attack was not on two human beings, it was on a man and a woman. And that attack continues today because Satan knows what male and female represent. So, let's go on to the research. I want you to know that many of us will cite research. I will read complete studies. I have stacks of them, and the research that undergirds what we're going to talk about here this afternoon, I read these things from beginning to end. You've got to do that. You can't take somebody else's word for what that study says. This is only a sampling of some of the studies, academic studies, many from feminist journals, but leading academic journals, explaining sex difference. And so I'm going to read to you from some of these. This research comes from neurobiologists, evolutionary psychologists, and anthropologists studying and looking at human experience all throughout the world, in every continent, in every people group, in every language, to see, is there a fundamental, universal male and female nature? The neurobiologists, Ann Moore and David Giselle, are two of them. Their wonderful book, Brain Sex, that has been out for about a decade now. They say early in that book, it is time to cease the vain contention that men and women are created the same. They are not. And no amount of idealism or utopian fantasy, no idea of idealism or utopian fantasy can alter that fact. The truth is that virtually every professional scientist has concluded that the brains of men and women are different. If I were to ask you whose brain is more capable, the man or the woman, I would say as a husband, the woman. My wife always tends to be right, and I would do better by listening to her. Moore and Jessel conclude there has seldom been a greater divide between what intelligent, enlightened opinion presumes, that men and women have the same brain, and what science knows that they do not. Alice Eagley, She is a reasonable feminist. I even hate to say it that way. But she is a very thoughtful, reasonable feminist scholar writing in the journal Feminism and Psychology. She says the majority of studies that we're talking about have confirmed in a general way to people's, have conformed to a general way to people's ideas about the sexes. This evidence suggests that lay people, once maligned in much feminist writing as misguided holders of gender stereotypes, get this, may be fairly sophisticated observers of male and female behavior. Of course, what Eagly is referring to supportively is our grandmothers who never went in for the newfangled ideas that men and women are not different but quite the same. Okay? Lloyd Lupto, he, in looking at a review of 18 longitudinal studies, long-term studies, in 6 waves from 1974 to 1991, reveals stability and even a slight increase in what they call sex typing. And that is basically, is there a particular way to understand and see males and females? A male way of doing things and a female way of doing things. He says this in his research: this accumulating evidence is inconsistent with the socio-cultural explanation, that is the cultural context or movement or influence upon gender development. It is more consistent with the currently emerging sociobiological research that holds gender differences reflect, get this word, innate. They're common to who we are as human beings. Differences between the sexes resulting from their different reproductive strategies. Even the evolutionary biologists, as we'll see in a minute, are coming to these conclusions because they see that male and female all around the world are the same, and they just simply explain that male and female have evolved that way because of their differences. How male and female are and how they form families have deep innate roots in our humanity. There's another interesting study that was actually reported on the New York Times, in the New York Times. There we have the Manhattan folks again, okay? The question is, what happens when sexes are free to be what they choose to be? What they found out, that as personality tests were analyzed in more than 50 diverse countries, 6 continents, representing 30 different languages, they studied personality types of males and females in these various cultures. The New York Times reported on some of this research. It looks as if personality differences between men and women are smaller in traditional cultures like India's or Zimbabwe's than in the Netherlands or the US. What the New York Times concluded there was the more Venus and Mars have equal rights and similar jobs, the more their personalities seem to diverge. That when men and women have the political and economic freedom to be who they are, they become more gender distinct. They become more masculine, more feminine. David Schmidt, one of the authors of this study, he says, an accumulating body of evidence, including the current data, provides reason to question the social role explanation of gender and personality development. There is an innate male and female nature in human beings wherever we go around the world, wherever we look at in history and time, it is there. Now, we want to ask the question, different how? These are just a small sampling of some of the ways that men and women are different. Some of them may not be surprising to you. Some of them may be. First of all, these researchers find out that as you go across the world and survey men and women in developed countries and developing countries, in ancient and current cultures, they find that women tend to smile more than men. And this is humanly universal. Both male and female, this is interesting, both male and female prefer looking at female bodies. When a woman comes into the room, the men look at her, not your husbands, none of them do, but men generally tend to, and the women will look at her to check her out, like how nicely dressed is she. Universally, men and women are that way. This is cool. Women overestimate men's preferences for slender women. Women, take the pressure off. Men like you, a little more full-bodied, okay? That's true of human beings all over. Men take chances. Women are more safety-minded. Think about this. Car insurance and life insurance and health insurance is more expensive for who? Men, not because the insurance companies don't like men, but men are more accident prone. They take more chances. Women are more safe. Males are more sexually adventurous than women. I'm not going to go into that in great detail. You know what, I will real quick. They asked men in all these different, well, they asked both. In all these different cultures, if you could have sex without any negative consequences with somebody who was sexually talented that you knew for 5 years, 2 years, 1 year, a week, half a day down to 5 minutes, you think, who in the world would say, yes, I would have sex with somebody who I knew for 5 minutes? No women said that. There were quite a few men who did. The more the time went down, the more men were still saying yes, fewer women were. That's the male and female nature. Girls are better academically. They're more obedient, they pay attention in school, they buckle down. Get this though, and I love this, boys are more confident about their academic development even though they come in second. Go boys. Last one here. Women are more positive in their assessment of others. I want to close real quick by drawing from a recent book that I did and looking at some of these differences for families. I'm going to look at 3 real quick, and I'll start down at the bottom, prep for life. Dads tend to prepare kids for the world. Moms tend to protect kids from the world. How is that? Think about a lightning storm, okay? Both moms and dads want to keep their kids out of lightning storms. Mom is more likely to go, oh, it could lightning later this afternoon, why don't you just stay home? Dad is more likely to say, you know what, go on and go, it could lightning. Here's what you do to stay safe from lightning. If you see a bully, mom says, you know what, stay away from the bully. Dad is, if you see a bully, here's how to protect yourself. Moms protect kids from the dangers of the world. Dads prepare them for the dangers of the world. Play is another one. Dads tend to play more physically and animated and roughly with their kids, even their infants. You think about the parent who will put their kid down, put their face down on the kid's belly and blow air into their stomach and, make funny noises and get the baby to be all riled. Dads do that. Moms, not as much. Think about this. When you're in a restaurant and you hear back behind you a baby just giggling hysterically, see who's stimulating that baby. It typically will not be a mother or a grandmother. It will be a father, an uncle, a brother, or a grandfather. Men stimulate babies in those ways. Research finds that 70% of father play is very physical, very stimulating, very kind of large motor skill. Only 4% of mother play is that way. Children need both of those things. I want to end with this. The virtue, if you will, of throwing kids, okay? Everywhere you go in the world, and I've traveled all around, and I see it in China, I see it in Europe, I see it here, I see it all over. Babies sometimes go flying into the air, okay? Now let me ask you, who do you think does more throwing, mothers or fathers? Okay? Your laughter answers that question. Think about what happens here, okay? Dads and granddads are more likely to throw their uncles to throw the little babies into the air. Mothers, not so much. They keep them down here safe. The benefit of that is obvious. Kids stay safe. I like being with mom. It's nice here, okay? But dads take the child, throw the child up in the air, high. That look on that child's face, holy blank, you know? And they lose their breath and the mom is freaking out. But that baby, just as it goes up, it comes down into dad's arms. And tell me what that baby does. Laughs. If that baby can talk, again. There's a whole industry built on this. It's called the roller coaster ride industry. We love to be thrilled. What dad, by throwing that child up into the air, is teaching that child the world can be a scary place. But as the baby comes down, the world can be a safe place too. I can count on people. That builds confidence. The children know that they can take chances. Go to a playground and close your eyes and put on your best non-gender stereotype hat and listen to the parents. What kind of parent is saying, swing a little higher, climb up to the next limb, throw the ball a little harder? Who's saying, watch out, be careful, not so rough, okay? You know the answer to that. Those are humanly universal things. One parent's way keeps the child out of the emergency room. The other way builds confidence in the child. I can take a chance. I can do something. I can climb up to the next limb. Children need both of those. One is not more important than the other, but children need both mom's influence and dad's influence. Let me end with this. If one is going to hold to a gender construction theory, it must be done in either ignorance or denial of a mountain of impressive anthropological, psychological, and neurological scientific research. It is actually personal and social androgyny that is the social construct, for it only exists within the rickety, ideological scaffolding of gender studies. Male and female matter for the family because they are essential for the family and they're essential to humanity. And we redefine it and ignore it and denounce it at our own peril. Thank you so much.